6:38 p.m. Thank you. All right, we'll start with attendance. Aguilar. Allen. Appia. Baruco. Bennett. Bonaventure. Borelli. Castellana. Chacron. Curtis. Dennis. Tureer. Senator Gothero. Gibbs. Goebel. Hunkert. Oxa. Jane. Javidi. Javasetti. Carl. Clayson. Kakanda. Kowalski. Kundu. Lanza. Lavoy. McMillan. Michael. Murray. Nazaro. Nenadal. O'Connor. Von Olsen. Olje. Perry. Rajaraman. Rogalski. Schroeder. Sayrek. Cisnowski. Thakar. Tumu. Villanueva. Villar. Utina. Bird. Here. Valverde. Johnny. Here. Tinkley. Electricon. Gopal. Here. Hinton. Here. Johnson. Here. Conrad. Here. Crooks. Here. Mirza. Sadani. Stern. Gothru the Justice. Hack. Baxter.
Present.
And Ratzmo. Is there anyone that I did not call? Last call for anyone I didn't call. All right, we'll now move into public comment. If Mr. Dodson can please come up.
Good evening. So I just have a few updates. Next Thursday on the 30th, our Hunger and Homelessness campaign to support Syrian refugees will be hosting a film screening at the Todd Center. It is an honors event, and they are screening After Spring, which details a group of Syrian refugees' journey from Syria to asylum. And my own campaign, our 100% Clean Energy campaign, is hosting a call-in day. And the film screening is at 7 o'clock, and our call-in day is at 11, and that will be an effort to ask students to make calls to their state legislators so we can bring this effort to a larger stage. And in other news, we held our chapter elections on Monday night, and that was for our executive board. So Casey Lambert is our new chair. Myself, Walter, I am our new vice chair. Alex Pollack is our treasurer, and Emily O'Hara is our new secretary. So, if you would like any more information on those two events or any of her campaigns, come talk to me in the back after Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Is there anyone else who would like to be recognized for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. We have no minutes right now, so we'll move into reports. We'll start with the report of the student. We'll move into the report of the Student Services Chair.
Hi everyone. My parents are from Old Navy. That was the issue in the office earlier. Student Services didn't have a meeting this past week because we did not make quorum. We had a lot of students that were sick or still coming back from spring break. So instead we're going to be doing a lot of work over Google Docs to get ready for Student Appreciation Day. We're just waiting for the final approval from Kim to get everything all set and our giveaways will be in, and we're going to start coordinating with services. So if any of you have a particular interest in building a relationship with a service on campus, like dining, Res Life, the whole shebang, let me know, and I can make sure you're assigned to them, or if I have people with me that are already point people, so they can work with them. Tampon time is also just waiting for approval from Kim before we get up and running. If you sign up to help volunteer, please keep an email, and I have an email, or a notification from me in the next like a week or so. We're going to have that schedule up and running, and if your schedule did change, I'm going to post the link again so people can check to make sure they're still all set for the times they signed up for. Sustainability Subcommittee is doing a lot of great work. We just had a meeting right before this, and we're still brainstorming for what we're going to be doing for the rest of the semester. And we're also going to hopefully be a part of Earth Day this year, which is on April 18th. That's when the event is outside with all of the different eco groups on campus. And hopefully we'll be able to get some giveaways for that as well. Just for water, it's nothing major.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the Student Services Chair? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the President. President Byrd.
Okey-dokey. So a couple things. I am starting to, over the next 4 weeks, kind of wind down my responsibilities and start giving more responsibilities to President-elect Valverde, and I will be transitioning with her, starting to bring her to some of my meetings and introduce her to the people that I meet with on a regular basis. So that's going to be my main priority over the next 4 weeks, because the new executive board will take their positions 4 weeks from today on April 19th. Additionally, I am working with Comptroller Johnny on some of the budget things that we talked about. Maybe she can go more into this, but we did mention that we will propose some funding more changes in terms of some language changes, as well as potentially caps and cut changes, so that we can save money, because the budget we presented a few weeks ago needs to be complemented with some of those adjustments. Lastly, I found a gold ring. Well, I didn't find it. Nikki found a gold ring in the office. If it's yours, let me know. And I'll field questions.
Are there any questions for the President? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the Vice President. Vice President Valverde. Sure.
Okay. So the only thing about that is, the only thing I can think of for her is the banquet sign up. The RSVP form has been sent out. Everyone, please fill that out. Everyone is welcome. One guest. It's a +1 event. It's $15 per member. If you bring an outside person who's not a member of USG, it's $20 for the pair. If you're going with someone in USG, it's $30. Because it's still $15 per member. And please fill out that form. I think the due date is 7 days before the event. And the money is also due, I think, like the Friday before the event. But check out that email. Make sure you fill out the form. This banquet is on April 7th.
Are there any questions for Vice President Byrd? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the Comptroller. Comptroller Johnny.
Hello, I hope everyone had a great spring break. Oh, it's about that time in senior year. I will also be working on transitions. Like President Bird said, I have started going through policies, through the funding board policies in specific, as well as the funding procedures, which are two separate governing documents that we have. I will be making, one of my biggest efforts in transitioning is to make sure that we're abiding more closely with policies. So going through them with President Bird, if we find things that we think that should be amended, we will be bringing those to Senate. I've had a lot of appeals in the past 2 weeks, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks, and that's actually pretty normal because in the spring more groups post events, especially as the weather gets warmer, it's supposed to get warmer, more and more events take place, so it's pretty normal for more appeals to be held in the spring. And the last thing is that me, Chief of Staff Lexicon, and Chairperson Mirza will be further exploring the inventory system in terms of, I know that he is looking into certain programs and things like that. However, within the funding board policies, there's an entire section on what the comptroller should be doing in terms of inventory. So that needs to be coordinated with that as well. So there's another layer to that that we need to discuss as well. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Comptroller Johnny. Are there any questions for the Comptroller? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the Chiefs of Staff. Chief Lechicon.
So Chief of Staff Dinkley won't be here today, but we'll talk about it later. So for me, she already said it, I'm going to be working on the inventory system and funding policies. What else? Anyway, I'm going to be working on senior things with Irma, so that includes like sashes, recognition, stuff like that. And then as for Chief of Staff Dinkley, the only thing that I can think about for her is the banquet. So she's been working really hard on it. Would love to see all of you there. Bring a date or a friend or whoever you want to label them as. And yeah, also last day to drop class is on Monday, so if you drop something, be vigilant about that.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Lechicon. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the Speaker. Hello, everybody. The Senate leadership is currently winding down its operations, and we are currently working on providing for the next Senate leadership. To that end, we are still accepting if you're interested in being Speaker or Parliamentarian next year. Please let us know. We've emailed everyone who has already expressed interest in that position to give them a little rundown of what's going on. And to continue with that program, we're going to have those people who have expressed interest chair portions of Senate from now until the end of the year, which is only 2 more Senates after this. So as it is right now, we're working mostly on ensuring that the next Senate leadership has every possible assistance that they might need. And we're working really to develop what's going to be next year's leaders. So if you have any questions or interest, let us know. Oh yeah, kudos for him too. Parliamentarian Goebel has been working really hard on that. So if there's anybody in this organization who you would like to express gratitude for them, themselves, for their work, please fill out that kudos form. All right, any questions? Also one last thing, going along with that program, tonight Senator O'Connor will be chairing the discussion for item B of discussion, so just be aware that that's going to happen. All right, we'll now move into the report of the Chief Justice. Chief Justice Stern.
Hello, everybody. So, three things. First thing is next Thursday we're meeting with Kathy Cox. Tomorrow we're going to talk about what Jess is, the advisor is actually going to come to help us kind of talk through that plan with us. That way we can get that ball rolling. Secondly, very similarly, we're going to be talking about our plan for parking appeals, which we've done in a very similar light to community standards. And finally, I just want to give a shout out to Jess's gatherer. She did a phenomenal job throughout elections in my absence, and so I think she deserves her own.
Thank you, Chief Justice Stern. Are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Seeing none, we'll move into the reports of the chairs. If the chairs could please line up behind the podium. And we'll start with the Academic Affairs Chair.
I don't like how short this podium is. I think it's new. So here's what we're doing in Act Affairs. We're kind of getting back in the swing of event planning, which is everyone's favorite task. The Open Educational Resource Awareness Panel, partnered up with PERT, that's going to happen on April 13th. We've booked Student Union Room 304A, I believe, which is one of the ones down the hall. Tell your professors, if you're in any of the classes that are using open educational resources, please tell them about this. This is kind of an appreciation event for those professors to try to get more awareness out among faculty about the benefits of these to students. Another thing on our agenda are the info panels about pertinent political topics that are happening today. We're thinking about having one on the 17th about constitutional law and one on the 24th about the environment, and we're partnering with the judiciary to try to bring academic discourse to campus regarding constitutional law, environmental law, that kind of thing. So exciting moves for April, and then everyone's favorite care packages are happening soon, so I'll be ordering the stuff probably this weekend. And yeah, any questions? Sorry, that's your job.
Are there any questions for the Academic Affairs Chair? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the report of the External Affairs Chair.
All right, everyone. Well, I will start with the sad news first. After lots of work, Andrew Gowski did such a great job planning it. Because of reasons out of our control, the Huskies Assisting Technology will not be happening on Saturday. We do not have a reservation for the room, but there's a lot of exciting things coming up other than that, and we will hopefully be able to plan something like that in the future. First, on Friday, we'll be on Fairfield Way giving out information about the budget cuts. Just little pamphlets explaining to students what's happening, why it matters to them, and definitely having conversations with students. We're planning another cleanup. The other one went really, really well, so we're trying to partner with even more groups and do an even bigger cleanup in town, so I'm very excited about that. And just to get it on people's radar, we're going to have a spring movie night as well. We're going to have it for mid-April. I'll have the date by later this week, but it's actually going to be at the Mansfield Drive-In. We'll be buying car passes for people, so if you're interested in doing that, or you know people in town who would be interested in getting a car pass, we're going to have a limited amount we're going to be able to get, so please let me know ahead of time. And finally, on Friday, we're going to be having a really interesting discussion in external, so please come. Senator O'Connor has a piece of legislation he's been working on for a while. It's been going in and out of committee, and I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion on Friday.
Are there any questions for the External Affairs Chair? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of the Funding Board. Thank you, Chairperson Hinton. Chairperson Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Pretty short report today, nothing much. We're still chugging along with spring funding. We closed all spring requests on Monday, March 13th last week. As that was, we are now about 6 weeks from the end of the semester, as scary as that seems. So we are trying to wind down the spring funding and dealing with those last requests that were submitted in that last week. And at the same time, get ready for fall. In bringing that, I'm also hoping to help with the new funding board chair so that we can have a smooth transition over the summer, because funding really never stops, and I don't want us to have a gap in time. And leave groups hanging over the summer, even though a lot of them aren't concerned with funding. Other than that, nothing else. Still chugging along in the office. Seems a little crazy, but we're dealing with it.
Are there any questions for the funding board? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the report of programs by Chief Electricon. Thank you, Chairperson Johnson.
Was good. The inventory and rental system will be up within the month. And he said his committee's doing a great job.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions for programs? Seeing none, we'll move into the report of student development. Chairperson Crooks.
So we're continuing to plan our events. So Cultural Open House will be April 20th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on the 4th floor of the Union. With that, I've also been talking with Senator Bruco about partnering with the Together Project, so that way we can include their initiatives as well. For Lethany Cake, that'll be on April 21st from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Student Union Ballroom. The link I've posted for team signups in the USG page. We are in the process of making Facebook event pages for all 3 events, but in the meantime, the link to sign up for a team to decorate the cakes is there. So if you're in any other organizations, clubs, or groups, feel free to pass that link along and make a team, decorate a cake. Get the possibility to win some cool prizes and a catered dinner. And for Founders Day, that's April 23rd on Fairfield Way from 5 to 7 p.m. All of our t-shirts are in the process of going to licensing, so you can get approved to use the past Yukon logos.
Thank you, Chairperson Crooks. Are there any questions for student development? All right, seeing none, we will move into new business. Seeing no old business. Seeing no old business, we'll move into new business. Seeing no new business, we'll move into discussion. We'll move into item A of discussion, which is the proposed bylaws and constitution. If Deputy Speaker Kundu would please take the chair.
All right, Speaker Wang, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, hello everybody. So what you have right now is a proposed set of governing documents that was started sometime last year and was completed over the summer. I personally think it's a well thought out document, but I know, right? Whoever wrote it really great job. But I think that considering a new set of governing documents forces us to look at a range of questions involving this organization and how we want to structure it. For instance, this set of governing documents does not make a radical change to the overall structure of USG. Instead, what it mostly does is simplifies our current documents and restructures the executive committee and the placement of the rest of the standing committees. I think that it's fair for us to start to question whether or not a three-branch system is really the right system for us. I think that a three-branch system is a really good system to provide checks and balances. But whether or not USG will become tyrannical and start taxing students on whatever it's not something that USG ever really needs to do. If that's the case, the question is whether or not we will be served by another system that will be more efficient, possibly. Possibly a parliamentary system, unitary system, stuff like that. So as you're looking over this document, which keeps the three-branch system, I want you to keep that in mind. But yeah, if there are any questions regarding the document right now, I will yield to those questions.
Sure. So, Senator Burke, or you have the rest of the 10 minutes?
I don't know if it'd be helpful to show a question on the bylaws and that should be the number of sentences. I don't know who's getting, I don't know if the number is, and how that number was revised, so if you could just give us one.
Yes. So, reclaiming my time.
Sure. Yep.
That is under elections. Right there. This is actually, thank you for reminding me of this. This view is, oh, there it is. This number is actually subject to change if any senators were here before the fall 2016 elections. They will remember that we had a nice lengthy debate about reallocating seats in general. And those senators will remember that at that time we discussed a logarithmic equation that would basically cap the number of total senators we would have, cap the number of senators per constituency, and at the same time attempt to provide fair representation in terms of numbers. So what the system really does is prevent CLES, for instance, which is the biggest school by far, has about 12,000 students at this campus, from overpowering the rest of the constituencies. Yeah, law of diminishing returns, as the speaker says. Does that make sense? The specifics of the equation, I believe we did make several changes to it at the beginning of the year. For instance, in this number over here, just to slightly adjust it to make it a little bit more fair, but the overall idea is the same. This was something that was also voted on earlier in the year, so that's just something that's carried over. But thank you for that question. My time just goes.
Sure.
With respect to the total number of Senate seats, I'm just curious as to what your opinion is on, I know we increased the number, and in this past election, there was only one competitive Senate seat, which ironically was in engineering. Fortunately, I was the one who all were lost. But I'm just curious if you think that maybe you created too many Senate seats, therefore reducing the competitiveness of the elections and kind of decreasing maybe the biddedness of some of the candidates who can win just by inviting themselves in.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Speaker. That argument was the same argument that was made 4 years ago when the Senate of that time voted to lower the number of Senate seats. What that led to was, unfortunately, a situation in which for last year's Senate, in which half of the people who ran for Senate seats did not end up actually getting into the Senate, and the size of the Senate was restrictively small. The issue that we're talking about when we're talking about there being too many seats, I think is more of an issue of advertising elections in general. I'll say that year to year it varies. Last year we had a lot of interest in Senate seats, and those seats filled up. This Senate right now is the largest Senate we've had, at least ever. Just saying. And next year's looks like it, unless a lot of seats are filled during special elections, during fall elections, will be relatively small. But I think that in order for us to maintain fair representation of the approximately 22,000 students we have at this campus, 21,000, that we should keep the number as is. Is that a follow-up?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for answering that question. I know you had questions. And I also, with respect to the advertising, is there a certain, I don't mean to call anyone out, but specifically I just don't know if it's the responsibility of a specific party, whether it be EOC or Senate leadership or public relations chair, to do that advertising. And do you have any ideas as to how we can stimulate healthier?
Well, so the domain of elections in USG falls under the Elections Oversight Committee. In past years, Senate leadership has taken an interest because of the fact that this body depends on the elections to operate. So in future years, I would expect to see a little bit more active advertising rather from the Elections Oversight Committee. I think that the committee did a good job administratively this year, but I think that in terms of advertising, that's something that we should do. I'll leave one to Ms. Zara.
Sure.
Question about Article 7, it just says SPF.
This is in the Constitution. The bylaws. If any of you have ever read a document that I've written, I always use STF as a placeholder, just because it's like that few fingers and you know about me. But in terms of intra-university relations, this was something that I thought we could just pull directly from legal documents. So, does that answer your question? You'll want to talk to Senator Tubman?
Sure.
One thing that I noticed is, aside from a mention of the comptroller taking the oath in the bylaws, there is no mention of the comptroller in the Constitution. So, we might want to add that back.
Yes, Councilor Jones.
There's a lot of regulations on what the comptroller can do within the governing policies and stuff. So, yeah.
So, wait, comptroller, is there so does the comptroller get their power from the funding board documents or from the Constitution?
So, let me give you a second and I'll find it. Because when I was going through these, a lot of things that like one of the biggest things that I noticed is that a lot of my authority is kind of outlined within these policies. And these are the funding board and senior organization funding policies. And I guess that kind of makes sense because of the nature of my job. Because a lot of it is externally focused as well as internally focused. And I can show you that in here. But I honestly couldn't tell you whether that governs for this. I assume both.
Senator Tubman, in response to your question about the lack of the comptroller in the Constitution, it is correct that the Constitution does not create the position of comptroller. And I'm looking at my notes right now. Basically, because this document was based so heavily on other existing, mostly state government documents, the position of comptroller in most states, as well as in the federal government, is created through laws and not in the Constitution itself. The Constitution itself outlines basically the bare bones. And that's one of the ideas that I was working with. There's an amendment. Yeah, if possible. Thank you. It is the idea of fundamental law, where we outline the very basics, bare bones of, what would keep this organization running at the very bare minimum, and then having everything else be done through the bylaws, because that gives us a lot more flexibility, if that makes sense. Yes.
Another one of my concerns is the comptroller is not given a spot on the board in the new Constitution.
Correct.
And so because the board is created by the Constitution, you would either need to add the comptroller to the board in the Constitution, or change the place where the board gets its authority to not be the Constitution, to be the bylaw.
So the lack of the comptroller on the board is actually something that I discussed with Senator Gibbs, I believe. Basically, the comptroller is not necessarily the leader of any branch of the organization.
Not really leader, right?
Basically, what the new board in this document does is consolidate the leaders of each of the branches, and then place two appointees of the president on the board, so that in any event the president is able to tie the votes of the other two branches. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Okay. Would you like to? Is there any part of that you'd like me to clarify? Or?
I'm going to reread it.
Okay. I'd like to yield my time to Senator Ryan.
Sure.
When do you plan on presenting this to be like voted on?
Okay. That's all up to you. If you're comfortable with this, I'm comfortable to bring this up at the next Senate. Again, replacing stuff like SDF and changing that one number in the equation. But again, that's all up to you as the senators. Again, I think that we also need to question whether or not we want to continue with the three-branch system, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, seeing we're talking about it before, personally, I like the idea of the board change. I think that's a really great idea. But I do think that the comptroller should be included. I understand we're splitting between the three main branches, but at the same time, I think everything the other branch of the city government does should be done with financial concerns in mind. And I think having that financial voice on the board keeps it not just, talking ideally about things we'd like to do, but also practically from a financial standpoint. I know that there was a big debate a couple Senates ago about fiscal responsibility, and these are things that we do have to keep in mind when we're bringing things to the floor of the Senate. So I just wanted to voice my opinion, and I think that the comptroller should.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
I'd say that that's a perfectly fine idea, and I would leave that to the Senate to decide. I would say that if the Senate were to decide that the comptroller should be on the board, then the position of comptroller then needs to become a position that is created inside of the Constitution, so that in the event a future administration decides we do not need a comptroller anymore, strike it, there's no empty reference there. No reference from that. Hopefully, sense. If that makes any sense. I think I saw one right hand.
Any other questions for George?
Alright. If not, I'll yield the rest of my time, and if somebody would like to propose any changes to this document, they can move to do that.
All right. This is in discussion, right, George?
Correct.
All right. So, is there any more discussion on this item?
This is just like a constitution or also
Yes. All right, both. Yes, Senators.
Another thing I've noticed is that committee heads don't have a spot on the board anymore, and so I'm wondering exactly what the purpose of this new board is. Is it to coordinate day-to-day affairs, or is it to, have communication between the three branches?
Speaker Wang, would you like to address that?
Yes, if Senator Chu would like to yield this time.
Oh, yes, I yield my time.
Basically, if you read the foreword to the proposed documents, which is all the way at the very top, it goes over a few reasons why I changed the composition of the board. One is that I believe that the board should be directing the overall direction of the undergraduate student government. As it is currently, the committees are technically subsidiary to the Senate and are overseen by the Senate. And if that's the case, that would kind of change the balance of the board. So in my opinion, replacing the board with the 2 leaders of each branch and then providing some separate forum for the committee chairs to continue to communicate with each other is the best option.
What if we were to change the structure of Senate leadership such that the chairs of the sub-bodies of the Senate, the chairs of the committees, had a forum there? Additionally, one of my concerns is that when legislation is proposed, we send it to committees before it goes to the Senate. Would changing the constituency or the makeup of the board entail a change in how that change or that change in executive work?
So the answer to that is no. Legislation that is sent to the committees is considered in committee and not in executive as it is currently. I think your other idea was to create that forum for the communication of committee chairs within Senate leadership, and I'd say that that's a really good idea. I'm not sure. I don't think that necessarily should be put in the Constitution. Yeah.
Any other discussion on this point? Yes. First, Rich. So Rich, you can go first. Yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking out. Yeah. If actually, is there a motion to suspend the rules? Yeah. Senator Berman. Is there a second? Senator O'Connor. Actually, George. Majority, right? For suspending rules.
2/3.
2/3.
2/3. But you also have to specify exactly which board is suspended.
What would it be in this case? Just.
So you just want to have open discussion?
Yes, just open discussion.
Suspend for everyone. No. Sorry. Suspend rules regarding debate.
All right, so I'll take that as a motion to suspend rules regarding parliamentary debate, right? O'Connor, right? Okay. So any discussion on that? I'm guessing no. So all those in favor of suspending the parliamentary rules until we move past this point, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, passes. So the rules are suspended until we finish discussion on this item.
Okay, wonderful. So 2 points that I wanted to make are for this article, the first 2 things. Having gone to Casca twice and seeing the layouts of different student governments from around this nation, as well as some from abroad, we truly, when we go there, we have the most stable structure in terms of our exec because we have representation from every different part of the organization. The way we're set up is very different, and it's way more complicated than other student governments that generally only have a Senate, and their executive board basically leads their Senate. That's essentially how I've seen most student governments do it. And so the fact that we have right now, I really do pride ourselves on our structure in terms of the executive committee specifically, because I think it's really important that you have the judicial, executive, and legislative branch all together. And different committees are working on different things, and they make up a bulk of what we do, right? They carry out a lot of the initiatives that we have. And so I think it's really important to have those people as a voice on the executive board. The other thing is that just also having led committees and been a part of many committees, a change in leadership, you need to have a consistent leadership, a consistent person leading the meetings is essentially what I'm trying to say. Rotating the person chairing the meeting, I think, leads to a big lack of consistency, not just in what is being discussed, but also in leadership style and productivity of the executive committee as a whole. So yeah, that's all.
Cool. Any responses to that? Any discussion on that note? I'll give it away to President Bird.
Okay, a couple points. One, thank you, George, for presenting this. I just think you did an amazing job. A lot of work went into this, so thank you for that. Two quick things about the board. One, and tell me, George, if you think my interpretation is wrong. This board gives the president more power than the president currently has.
That's something that,
In terms of, like, if you're thinking about committee chairs as subsidiaries of Senate, Senate has currently 7 votes on exec, whereas the executive branch only has 2.
third, technically.
Who's the third?
The contract.
Okay, so 3 versus 7.
Correct.
And this would make the president have, or the executive have 4,
Correct.
and the Senate would have 2.
And so the Senate and the Judiciary both have 2.
Okay,
Yes.
so it would be 4. Yeah, so this, in my interpretation, just in terms of vote totals, gives the executive branch, and that's what I meant by the president. As in the document, it says that the executive branch's power should be vested in the president, but the executive branch on this board has much more power than it currently does. So that's something to be weary of. Second is committee chairs. We have 6 committee chairs, and they offer to me valuable perspective that I don't think the speaker and the deputy speaker could offer. For example, let's say the president chooses not to nominate the funding board chair or not to nominate the student services chair, but something regarding funding and student services comes up. The speaker may not be able to represent his or her branch effectively without the knowledge of being actually the funding board chair or actually student services chair. Does anyone not follow what I'm saying? Because I think I just threw up a word salad. But I think the committee chairs offers perspective based on their specific work that I think is valuable to the conversations that we've had in exec, not only this year, but last year and on every other exec. And I think most committee chairs would probably agree with my perspective on that. So I would also like to take that into consideration. Though, if this body chooses to change it back to, or add in committee chairs, I think you might as well just go back to the regular executive branch at that point. No rotating chair, which I think is weird, slightly. I think that if you're going to add the committee chairs back in, which I suggest you do, then you just kind of go back to the current executive branch we have and maybe leave some of the other changes.
Senator Gibbs?
I think President Burr brings up a lot of valid points that I had before I discussed with George. I do agree that I think it gives the executive branch a little bit too much power. My suggestion would be simply to reduce the number of appointees to 1, so that combined the 4 of the judicial and the legislature could overpower. Also, if you introduced the comptroller, I would consider that executive, it would be even again. But something that we need to continue debating. However, the point about the executive committee chairs representing the Senate, if it's my understanding, the president appoints the executive committee chairs, am I correct?
Correct.
Senate approves, but the president appoints. So I think that although in theory they're a subsidiary of the Senate, I don't think in practice that's how it works.
I also don't think the president could well enough represent the views of each committee chair. I don't think any one person, whether it's speaker or president.
Yeah. And I do think that that's a good argument, and I also want to agree with what Senator Tubu brought up about if the Senate does vote to eliminate those spots on the board, I think that it's absolutely necessary that we create another forum for Senate leadership to meet, for all of the executive committee chairs to meet in a weekly meeting with the speaker and with the deputy speaker and the rest of Senate leadership, parliamentarian, so that at least that communication is established. And I think I'd just like to kind of yield the rest of my time back to Speaker Wang with regards to the rotating chair point, because
it does seem a little weird, and I'm not necessarily decided on how I feel about it either. But I think Speaker Lang brought up a good point about putting items on the agenda and how that gives the chair a certain amount of power. So I'd just like to yield my time back to Speaker Lang to clarify his reasoning for putting the rotating chair.
Sure. George, you can go ahead.
So actually, I'll start with that, but I'd also like to respond to a lot of the other points that were made, if okay? All right. So for one, the rotating chair. So basically, in any committee or parliamentary body, the chair has a unique ability to be able to set the agenda for the organization, and I think that that is, it's a fairly big power. And in my opinion, what the rotating chair does is prevent any one person from blocking an item from getting onto the agenda, if that makes any sense. This is the same reason why the UN Security Council has a rotating chair. That is basically the reason for that. Is there a question about this specifically?
No, it's a follow after.
Okay. And to respond specifically to first of all, the question about the committee chairs on the board. I think that I completely agree that the committee chairs have a lot of perspective that they can offer. But I'm not sure that that necessarily means that they should have a vote on the board. So what I think would probably be the best solution going forward is to add somewhere in here a provision for delegate seats to the board for committee chairs. So if any of you are aware of our current ex officio system, this whole new system replaces the ex officio system with what's called a delegate system. That's just the semantics of it, because ex officio technically means from the title of, and technically that doesn't really apply here, but sorry, semantics. So this would, I think that is a good compromise to make sure that the direction of the organization is primarily driven by the leaders of each branch, the largest divisions of power within the organization, and allowing for all the different perspectives of the committee chairs and their unique expertises to be represented on the board, if that makes sense. What was the additional thing that I think either President Berger or Comptroller Johnny brought up? Oh yeah, the executive branch's power. Thank you, President Berger. So what this does, and if you read the foreword on the document, it explains why I set up a 4-4 divide. Basically, technically the executive branch is the only one that is elected by the entirety of the student body, and by that logic, they technically have a greater mandate, correct. I think to represent the interests of the student body. So what the 4-4 divide does is allow the executive branch to tie any vote in the board. And that's something that is important to know, is to tie any vote that happens in the board. This means that the executive branch cannot by itself push through any one initiative or idea or plan. But it means that they can basically be the more conservative body. They can prevent something from happening if the executive branch truly believes that the board should not be taking this action. They have the ability to tie that vote and maintain the status quo.
All right, so the next person I saw was Parliamentarian Gold. Do you still want to speak? You yield? Okay, next person was Rishna. You can go. Oh.
In terms of the rotating chair, what you mentioned about the chair being able to set the agenda, I think it's trying to solve a problem that we don't have. I don't think that the president, without conversation, or valid reason, has ever denied anything to be put on the agenda, so I've never seen that be a problem, and I don't think it has been ever a problem with any committee, especially if not, if we don't get to it one week, we get to it to the next. So I don't think anything has ever been left out from the agenda or denied. Sorry? Yep. So that they don't, the chair doesn't have the sole power to do that. But we had a switch of president mid-year due to circumstances out of our control, and being able to adjust and get back on our feet and get back to a productive place as a committee wasn't immediate. So just having one switch between 2 semesters took us a while to adjust to, so I can't imagine that switching every week is going to lead to a productive committee, because I also think that committee dynamic matters in terms of how the leadership is interacting with the committee and the committee is responding to that leadership, and if it's changing every week, that inconsistency I really think causes a detriment to the conversation and the contributions from the committee. The other thing is that this is just my thought process with having the committee chairs vote, so it's kind of a question, and I'd like to yield my time back to Speaker Wang after I ask this, but committee chairs, there are people in committees that only serve on one committee. There's also people in committees, obviously, that aren't in Senate. And I think that committee chairs are the best representation of those people that haven't been elected but would still like to be contributing members of the organization. So do you feel like taking votes away from the committee chairs or taking their representation away in the exec board results in a lack of representation of those particular groups of people?
First of all, thank you very much for those points and questions, Comptroller Johnny. What I would say is that I think that, again, I think that the leaders of each of the branches should be primarily the ones who are driving the overall direction of the organization, given that that is the biggest division of power we have in this organization. And I think that it's a very good compromise for us to include basically the standing committee chairs as delegates on the board, because that still gives them the ability to debate. That still gives them the ability to say, hey, wait a minute, let's take a step back, think about this, to convince all the other members of the committee. It's just my opinion that I'm not necessarily sure that they should have a vote on the board, because I think that that kind of makes it for strange power dynamic. And also regarding the fact that they're nominated by the president and under the oversight of the Senate. This also kind of allows us to sidestep that question. And if possible, could I also respond to the rotating chair? I think that when I was writing this document, I wasn't necessarily just trying to look at problems we have had in the past and how to fix them. I was looking across, I was looking at a lot of different models from the UN to different states, to some research papers published out of Texas, to the federal government. I was looking to pick what I thought were the best items from each structure and add them into our own organization. So this is more not necessarily a reactionary step, but I think more of a proactive one. I'm not sure if in the past, like beyond our 3 years here, if anything like this has happened in the past, but yeah, I'm always in mind that I think we should be more proactive and take the best out of everything.
I have a quick follow-up. Did you take a look at the models of different student governments across the nation?
No, I did not take a look at the models of different states while writing this document, because our system, as it is currently, is a 3-branch system. And if we were to keep that 3-branch system, majority of student governments, like you said, Comptroller Johnny, do not operate off of a 3-branch structure. Most of them actually operate off of a structure that is very similar to that of our university Senate here, which is comprised of a Senate, an executive committee of the Senate, but the Senate is basically the only body,
right,
in addition to committees of the Senate.
And the reason that I bring that up is because as much as we regulate ourselves, we're also regulated by higher administration. And I'm saying that like from a funding perspective, that everything I do, in the back of my mind, I have to say what will Kim think, what will Cindy say. And so because of that, I don't think that we can be completely modeled off of state governments or federal governments, because our dynamic with administration is a factor to be accounted for.
Could I ask which part of this model do you think would be problematic with the administrative?
I'm not saying that I'm not picking out any particular part of it to say that it's going to be problematic against the administration or with the administration. My point is just that we've taken what other student governments do and what the federal government and state governments do and found a middle ground that works as a student government, if that makes sense. Which is the only reason that I was asking about different student governments.
Okay. Is there any response to Comptroller Johnny's points specifically? Yes, Miles. Yeah, you're next on the list. Oh, okay, I might not be seeing you there. Yeah, then go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to somewhat synthesize the discussions we've been having so far, and talk about the presidential or the executive board's mandate. And this is why on the board the president, the vice president, and two appointees of the president get votes on the board. One thing that we have glossed over is that the comptroller is one of three positions that's elected by the entire student body, and as such has just as powerful a mandate as the president or vice president, because they are elected by the entire student body. So I think that the comptroller should be granted not only speaking rights, but voting rights on the board. Now, with respect to the rotating chair, I've worked in several boards where we did have a rotating chair, and the level of chaos generated by that is fairly high. And when you have a group dynamic that's set up with one person who has the power to set the agenda, you have this sort of unofficial hierarchy, if you will, and the group functions better when they know where their roles are. And so I think that a rotating chair could be detrimental to the overall function and efficiency of the board. Now, that said, I recognize your point about protecting against future tyranny, right? Which is what a constitution should do. And I think that the best way to deal with that is to add non-voting positions for all committee chairs who have full speaking rights, and give every member of the board an opportunity to add an item to the agenda, which would then be confirmed by a simple majority vote of all members, not just voting members. So committee chairs could also bring things to the agenda that may not be considered otherwise. And you still have the power balance that you get when the president and their three, or the president, vice president, and the two appointees get a greater share of the votes than presidential appointees did in the past, or Senate subsidiaries, whichever way you view it. So you preserve that balance of power. You make sure that student body mandates are accounted for, and we get that stability that we're looking for in having a single person in charge. I have my time to.
No worries. George, do you want to respond to that?
So what I would say is that I'm completely amiable to all these changes. My goal here is to present you with a document for this organization. It is not my document, it is hopefully our document. So if you want to make these changes, let us make these changes. I will say that if we do add the comptroller to the board, it is my recommendation that we also create that position within the Constitution, so again, to avoid that null reference problem. And additionally, it is my recommendation rotating chair. I think that that was an idea that I had. I think it's completely fine if we think that that will be detrimental to this organization. And if that is the case, it is my, we can make that change. So yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, cool. So next person who's interested in speaking about these points specifically, Miles, I saw your hand before. Do you want to do so on speak or not?
Well, Nathan actually did a great job there. My only recommendation would be if you do add the comptroller, which tends to be very closely aligned with the executive, like I did mention before, that it's the executive position, that we then remove one of the two appointed executive spots, if not both. Because I personally believe that combined the legislature and the judiciary should be able to empower the executive, but one or two, that's up for debate.
All right. Nanda, do you want to respond specifically to that point?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go ahead, and then I'll give it to Franklin later.
I don't think the comptroller is part of the executive branch. Because the executive branch is held by, or headed up by the president, and the comptroller has, one could say, equal mandate to the president. And so it wouldn't make sense to have the comptroller be under the president, if you will. So I think the comptroller has a unique spot in our governmental structure where they are not part of a branch, they're somewhat an independent person. And I think that's good for having on the board. Because it's like an impartial individual on the board.
Well, I agree they should be on the
So
board.
what you're saying, like, Dan can't technically tell me what to do. He can veto things that I do not. And luckily I have
I
a
mean, I
great,
can tell or should listen.
correct. And luckily we have a great working relationship where we do listen to each other and work together. That hasn't been the case, and I can tell you, in the time I've been here, I don't think there has been as much communication between the president and councilor as there was this year. So generally, no, like, I'm not under the president, and I function independently. My work and my initiatives, as much as any other committee, are brought to the executive board to get input, but I work independently from the president. I don't report to anyone.
Yeah, I'll let George respond to that.
If possible, if I could just clarify some of the details around this. Technically, the comptroller is a member of the executive branch, which is headed by the president. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rish, but technically, according to the document, your work is under the president, and in terms of budget and everything, that work is supposed to be spearheaded by the president with the assistance of the comptroller.
I don't think so. That's how it reads in your document, and when I read that, I was surprised.
Okay.
That's different than it is now.
Okay.
It's not, that's not.
Okay, that is my mistake.
But we do work on it together. Like,
Okay.
when we say we work on things together, that's because her and I choose to do it that way.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So,
Is this a lot of discussion, or is this discussion?
no, it's about the functional.
Yes.
No, so like, everybody has to be in a branch, and the only branch the comptroller can be in is the executive branch. The Constitution says the president is the head of the executive branch, so therefore it should be under the president.
Technically, yes.
So, Senator Schumer has brought to my attention that the first line in the Article 8 is the executive branch shall consist of the president, vice president, council, standing committee chair, and any additional personnel which the president may enlist using his power as president. That does not, to me, indicate that I have supervision over, or the president, excuse me, the president has supervision over the council, only that they're a member of that branch.
I think we have an opportunity to change that.
I don't think, so the powers and functions of the president of the student body never says that the president, it says the president shall preside over meetings of the executive branch, does not say that, explicitly say that they're the, like any member of the executive branch is under the supervision of the president. It's kind of not there, I don't know if that, like being chair of the executive committee implies that, but it's not explicitly stated. And so the way we operate, even in terms of the way SABO and Triad kind of dictates how we present things to SBAC and to other groups, it's the comptroller's job. And that person may enlist the assistance of the president.
Yeah, the board's input part never, like, sat down with Rachel and said, should we? He kind of said, this is what we're gonna do, whether you agree or not. Like, do you agree or not? And they may have had conversations where Dan and I sat down and went line item by line item, and we're like, we made it as a collective
So if that's the case, does, in the opinion of this body, mean that the, if in the makeup of this board, the comptroller should be considered part of the executive branch and thus added to the executive branch in terms of forming the power dynamic within that?
Do we have any thoughts on that? London?
I think the way that Rich and Ben are describing their relationship right now is something that we ought to formalize. Instead of having the comptroller be a part of any of the three branches, have them be somewhat an independent auditory type individual who has power vested in them by the student body to regulate, if you will, our actions. And
that's technically an executive function.
Right, but it seems to me that in this document, as you presented it, that's what it is kind of. That they're not a member of the board, but they're kind of a supervisee of the president, which I don't think is a bad idea, but I agree with Senator Gibbs that the comptroller should be added to the board and potentially, well, definitely one of those appointee seats for the president should be removed. I think George convinced me that 4 and 4 is a good idea. I don't think the judiciary and Senate should just like overrule the people elected by the body. But yeah, I agree with both of them.
Also remember that one of the biggest reasons that me and Dan are actually working together is because he's been involved in funding since his freshman year. It's not this common that a president has this much knowledge on funding board and funding policies or to be this involved. It's just because he has been on funding board and has taken interest in it since his freshman year. They play the past presidents have not been as knowledgeable.
The last 3 admitted that they only.
I'll yield to, no? Okay, never mind. No, continue if you.
That the last 3 presidents only signed packets, never looked through them, never cared about funding policies, didn't give a rat's.
So, and also the reason that committee chairs are under the purview of the president is because they're appointed. I was elected by the student body in the same manner that the president and vice president to go out and get votes and campaign and do all that stuff. Whereas committee chairs are appointed, which makes sense why they're under the supervision of the president.
Any discussion, Miles?
I just want to kind of maybe move the discussion along, because I do think we've already come up with a couple of really good compromises to the main issues that we've brought up. And we're not actually voting on this tonight, and keep that in mind. So just to summarize, I think that adding the comptroller as part of the executive and being voting on to remove one of those appointees hopefully will encourage more presidents and comptrollers to work as closely as well as you guys have. So I think that's a good compromise. I think we've come to agreement that maybe the rotating chair idea is the best, and I think the compromise regarding having the executive committee chair people be delegates and not voting members, I think that is also a good compromise. So maybe summarizing those items and just give people an opportunity to review.
All right. Franklin, yeah, I saw you next.
So yeah, I don't really have a point to say. Yeah, like Miles said, we're not voting on this committee. We've talked a lot about what we think we changed, but I think all of us can alleviate the uneasiness, the problems, the questions we have just by actually thoroughly reading George's proposed documents, having a week to do about it. We can talk about it in caucus, but I think we should all read the past undergraduate student government constitution that we got last year, if you were here last year, and seeing how it fits with this new one, and let's just all do our research and read so we're prepared and we have thought, like we have tangible things we can add or change.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move back into the rules. Is there any objection to reinstating the rules for parliamentary debate and all that? All right, so we'll move back into session then. Where were we? Right, okay. Senator Schumann.
I have 2 super minor things. In Article 3, Section 9,
And can you come up to the mic, please?
Oh, yeah. Really minor things.
In Article 2, Section 9, we refer to...
Hold up, it's...
So technically, this is discussion on so just further discussion on item.
All right,
We began discussion on this item, and then we suspended the rules. So when we got back to discussion.
Exited discussion.
no, we just exited, we just moved back into the rules, so we're still in discussion, yeah. Yeah, continue.
So Article 2, Section 9, we talk about meeting minutes. I think that's something we could put in the bylaws so that different administrations can change when they want to publish their meeting minutes whenever they choose. That's one of the minor things. The other thing is Article 2, Section 9. Oh, no, on the Constitution. Article 3. It is the legislative branch.
Could I just respond to that?
Oh, yes, please.
That is mostly something that is done in regards to FOIA compliance. It's not something really we can change. So my suggestion is just to keep in the Constitution so that future administrations can likely to change it.
Okay. The other thing is that the privilege of a senator to call for a roll call vote is not explicitly stated in this section, but it's something that I enjoy having.
Can I respond to that later?
Yeah.
That is included in Robert's rules. So if it is restated in our current governing documents, but that's just a restatement.
Okay. Because yes, it says the division can be called, but it doesn't say anything about roll calls. That's the only reason.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion on this item? Yes, Senator Gibbs.
Also small things. For Article 2 of the bylaws, it talks about the Elections Oversight Committee and how the President shall nominate an Elections Oversight Committee to the Senate by the last Senate meeting of the spring semester. I was just wondering if it's I also didn't see it specified anywhere how many people that body should be made up of. And I don't know if there's been a number that's been the standard in the past, but given that elections can be contentious, it might be a good idea to have that specified. And also, later on, talking about the EOC, let me find it. Actually, under the executive branch, Article 4, Section 6, it says the President shall, by the last meeting of each semester, nominate an Elections Oversight Committee, and it was my understanding that people on the Elections Oversight Committee serve a whole year term.
Quick question, where is that?
For the first one or the second one?
Second one.
Under the executive branch, Article 4, it's the bottom of page, that starts with there, right there. It's at the top right there. The President shall, by the last meeting of each semester, nominate an elections oversight.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, if I can also just respond really quickly to the question about the number.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that is actually, interestingly enough, a debate that we had my freshman year. The number of committee members on the EOC. It was actually the first motion I ever made, and it was voted down unanimously, but gotta try. So at that time, EOC Chair Himes had made the suggestion that we remove the specified number of justices, so not justices, EOC committee members, because any number that we had chosen before at that point were arbitrary numbers, and it was difficult for her as an EOC chair to necessarily fill X number of positions on the EOC. The Senate at that time had believed that, against my suggestion that we set the number for the EOC, that we should leave that open for each individual. Well, each individual administration at that time to decide because of the fact that there are different factors that go into it and that these committee members need to be confirmed by the Senate.
Senator
I like not mentioning it because, like you said, arbitrary, but I think it would be important to the minimum number, just so it's not one or two. And it could be one person. I believe a minimum number should be. What do you think about it?
I think that that's an interesting idea. I think I'd have to think a little bit more about that. Because my freshman year, how many was it? 3 or 4 members under Himes? 4?
Under Himes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was 4.
4? Okay. I would say that it's also an interesting thing. Again, it depends on so many different factors. Because once you sit on EOC, you're no longer allowed to participate in any USG election after your appointment to the EOC. So if at any point we can't find enough members who want to give up their right to ever run in an USG election again, and we're not necessarily able to find that number of people, that would then lead to a conflict with this governing document, and we have to do something. But I think that that's definitely an interesting idea. I think that we should think about that one.
Sure. Do this, there could be one committee member, and I don't think that would be just that representative. So I would think just at least 2. That way it's not really a huge problem to try to fill those seats, and it doesn't make it possible that it's 1, but it also gives the discretion. I just feel like a minimum number is good, because if you just make it up to interpretation, there could be 1 or 2. So I don't know if there could be 0.
There can't be 0.
Okay, then maybe the possibility could be 1. We'll just make that a committee would be more than 1 committee.
Okay.
Senator Gibbs.
You just made a comment about, and this is how my understanding of it was too, that if you are part of the EOC, you cannot run for any USG position ever again. Whereas in this document, it actually reads that any student who is currently serving on the elections oversight committees, ineligible elections occurring during his or her tenure as a member of the elections oversight committee, which implies that they could run the next year for a position again, which is contrary to my belief of how it's supposed to be.
Would you like to change that? Yes.
Yes.
So I tend to agree with you that I think it's better if they're never to run again, just for like practical reasons. But generally, you're not going to get people willing to take time to be on EOC in no other position and not run because it like kind of interrupts like their ability to be in anything else on USG. So even under this, I still think you're going to get formal seniors who are graduating. I don't think this dramatically changes like who's going to be on it. I think you're right. But what? Yeah, you might as well make it explicit.
Where do you write it? Who's currently serving or has served in elections?
All right, any other discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the next item of discussion, which is, do you do the chair back? All right, so I'll give the chair back to Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So at this point, if there's no objection, I'd like to suspend the rules so that Senator O'Connor could chair for item B of discussion. Is there any objection? All right, seeing none, so ruled. Hello, hello. I hope everyone's having a good day. We will first now move into item B of discussion, Senate resolution instating the move of Senate caucus. Seeing no need for a motion, we will move directly into discussion. Senator Priyanka, the car of alumni, you have 10 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just kidding. Good afternoon. I hope you guys are having a great day today. My name is Priyanka. I am an alumni senator, if you didn't know. Let's pull this up. Okay, so what I have here is legislation that discusses the move of Senate and caucus. The weekly day would be moved. I was planning on maybe having a discussion about it, so here we go. So, a Senate resolution instating the move of Senate and caucus. Whereas a diverse student representation in the undergraduate student government is imperative. Whereas only one Senate seat was competitive in this past 2017 spring election. Whereas 6 Senate seats were left empty in this past spring 2017 election, of which includes Senate seats for nursing, pharmacy, Radcliffe Hicks, fine arts, ACES, and CAHNR. Whereas residential assistant meetings take place weekly every Wednesday, coinciding with the undergraduate student government's regular meetings. Whereas many students accept a residential assistant job for the financial compensation. Whereas the undergraduate student government does not pay its participants. Whereas the undergraduate student government is losing potential competent members due to the conflict. Whereas the future success of the organization is based on its potential participants. Therefore, be resolved, the future weekly day of Senate and caucus be moved and implemented in the fall semester of 2018. Therefore, be it resolved, the future weekly day of Senate caucus be moved from Wednesday to another day decided by the majority vote in the Senate.
Will you suspend the rest of your time to the chair? Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Yes, Senator.
I would like to make a point that you stated 6 Senate seats weren't filled up. There's actually more than that as well. There's an ex officio senator positions that haven't been filled up as well. So we can include that just so people are aware of that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Senator?
I remember we discussed this in caucus a while ago. I wasn't, not, maybe I'm not remembering correctly. Oh, right.
I remember we talked about this in caucus a few weeks ago, actually quite a few weeks ago, and we discussed whether or not RAs were eligible to run for positions because of their authority over the students living in the residence halls. Whether or not it was ethical for them to run for residential seats, or whether or not they were eligible to run for seats at all based on RA or res-like policies. I know I have friends who are going to be RAs next year who are unable to run for USG seats because res-like prohibits them from doing so. If that is the case, then I don't think we should move the days that we have Senate caucus. So if anyone here has any resolution on these points.
And can you clarify, are you saying, is there a res-like policy that specifically says that can't run?
It is prohibited, I think. Or, I don't know if it's prohibiting or inhibiting. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, as somebody who is going to be an RA next year, I was reading through the policies, and they don't particularly prohibit you from running for Senate.
Okay.
It's mostly that they oversee your overall involvement, and that they want to make sure that you're able to commit the time that you need being an RA, and that they see USG as it stands as missing from the.
Senator Baraka. Senator Name continue. Do I need to yield my time to Senator Burke?
You're fine, I made a mistake.
Oh, no, that's right.
Rules are still on.
I yield my time to Senator Graff, the rules are still on. Senator Graff, do you have President Byrd, did you have something to say?
Yes. I can call it. Actually, Council President.
Okie dokie. So, three things. First, to your point to Senator Baxter, the ex officio seats not being filled has not anything to do with the RA situation. It's a completely separate and slightly equally complicated, but complicated for a different reason. And we can talk about that more after Senate if you'd like. But I didn't want that to be misconstrued with the election of RAs, because it's just slightly different. Secondly, exec under our current constitution, which would apply if we adopt this, and even if we adopt Speaker Wayne's constitutional bylaws, our constitution as it stands right now would apply for next academic year. It says that exec has to approve Senate's agenda. Moving Senate slightly complicates that. We kind of got around that issue this year by delegating that, so I don't think it's a big deal, but just something to be on everyone's radar. We can still delegate that responsibility to the Speaker and the President or something like that. Lastly is, if it's not going to be on Wednesday, you're pretty limited to either Monday or Tuesday. I think you're going to have a hard time getting people here on a Thursday night, and you're going to have a hard time getting people here on a Friday night. So you're limited to Monday or Tuesday. Those are your options. So if you're adopting this, I think you're essentially saying you're moving it to either Monday or Tuesday night.
You're moving it to Tuesday.
So you're moving it to Tuesday. This is a bill to move it to Tuesday. You're not going to get people to come. Point of order, Speaker.
Does moving Senate to Tuesday then prevent us from talking about trial applications?
If we were to move Senate to Tuesdays, assuming triad is still 5 to 7, it depends. So, okay, so it's a little complicated. So triad meets 5 to 7 every other Tuesday. So Senate, we're on the off.
What's Triad?
Triad is the leadership program that the President and Comptroller and one other officer must participate in every other week on Tuesdays 5 to 7. And it's all Tier 3 organizations. We meet every other Tuesday 5 to 7. So if the formal Senates were to be the off Tuesday, it would be fine. We then couldn't participate in caucus likely. Or if it were to be the same Tuesday, you would have to start Senate at like 7:30. So that's also a kind of a bit of a complication. It makes it so that the President and Comptroller would be late or would miss caucus, which I've been to a lot of caucuses, and I think it's important that the President and the Comptroller be there when necessary, especially when we're presenting on financial matters. So Monday is tough because of Greek life, Tuesday is tough because of triad, Thursday is tough, and Friday is tough for the same reason. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you, President Byrd. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Yes, you.
I actually just have a question. When writing this, I wasn't at the caucus that was discussed, but was this in response to an RA or someone wanting to be a part, or was this just our conversation? I just wanted to know what the legal background of this was. So yes, I was inspired by our last caucus, but I think the root of this was just seeing how so many Senate seats were left empty. And I think that even if we get 5 or 6 students to join, I think that will make a big difference and a better representation of the student body that we have, or we want to have in the Senate. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe if we can do some type of compromise of some sort. I was basically trying to say that
we do need, or there's a lot of seats that are empty at the moment, and we do need that representation, in my opinion. So that's where I was coming from.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Ms. Mo?
Just kind of more or less going off of Chair Person Hinton's point, and also Chair Gilbert's point. It is worth noting that RAs do, like, they have pretty involved responsibilities, and it's worth questioning whether or not we're going to be able to pull enough RAs to really make this worthwhile. What we're looking at is really saying, is it worth changing the Senate to Tuesday so that we can maybe, I mean, again, we don't really know how many RAs we've actually attract, and then at the same time, however many people we do attract, is that offset by how many people we lose on Tuesday? College Republicans, College Democrats, they both meet at pretty much this exact time on Tuesday. Those maybe not so much this year, but in the past have contributed a lot of members to this organization. So it strikes me that cost benefit is not there. That's just my opinion, but that's more or less what I'd say.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? Yes. Shoot, step forward.
Bianca, thank you for writing this, first of all. I want to respond to your point because last year I was an RA and I served on exec, so it totally can be done. And I don't think it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to take it on. It is possible, but I just think possible.
How many people are willing to undertake those responsibilities?
Well, I do know of multiple people. Currently, I'm still involved in Res Life, and last year I was an RA, so I was talking to a ton of people who did want to be senators, and I've heard this throughout my entire college career here that, oh, I wish I could be in USG, like I would love to be in USG, but I can't because I can't be a senator because staff meetings are on the same night, and money trumps USG in the end of the discussion, so just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? Voluntary Global?
Wait, sorry.
No, never mind.
I just want to follow up. I couldn't attend Senate last year for a lot of it, also because last year's Senates were a little shorter. So the structure currently is that staff meetings are 7 to 9, and my staff meetings always went to 9 o'clock, sometimes even afterwards. I mean, if we did have Senates that would go past 9 o'clock, like I would run back here, but it didn't always happen. So.
Thank you, Chief of Staff. I'll let you comment. Do we have any further discussion? Voluntary Global?
I think also a point about whether or not they can make the time commitment at all is that RAs are picked on the basis that they are student leaders, that they are involved in campus, that they lead students regularly, because that's the kind of person they want as your RA. That makes sense. So these are people who are already making time commitments to organizations that they will enjoy. But did they pick those organizations, and these are people who are still involved in those organizations? Are they still involved in those organizations as a result of like it works with their RA schedule, or is it just like they've selected those by chance? I don't know, but I think that if you open it up the opportunity to them, how does that hurt them?
Thank you, Senator.
One thing that I just want to say is that one of the points here is that 6 Senate seats were left empty, and of those seats that were left empty, seats like nursing, pharmacy, graphics, fine arts, those seats aren't usually filled anyway. So even when we have, and we've increased our Senate significantly, almost doubled in size, and so we have added a lot of representation, which I think is great, and we still aren't reaching those seats. I'm not necessarily sure if this addresses that, just because some of those schools are so small that it's really hard to pull a senator from those areas. And yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but I'm not entirely sure that those seats being empty is related to Senate being on Wednesday Wednesday. I think it's more just a factor of the size of those schools.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Do we have any further discussion? Yes, Senator.
I want to say that I think that RAs should not be permitted to run for residential Senate seats because of the authority that they hold over people that live in the same residence hall, right? If your RA tells you, I'm running for Senate, you should vote for me, that carries a little bit more weight than one of your peers saying the same thing, because that RA has institutional authority given over you and where you live. So there's a lot of questions that emerge when you have RAs running for residential Senate seats. And you could extend that to a much lesser extent to seats for colleges like you see here. So I don't think that we should have RAs be elected as residential senators. However, I think that RAs are a great addition to Senate. I think that right now they can attend committee meetings, they can be part of exec, they can do a lot of things right now that don't involve being elected to Senate. And I think that it might be for the better that this is the case. I yield my time.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any further discussion? Vice President Valverde?
So I really appreciate this work, especially because as a sophomore, I really wanted to be an RA because of the amount of help you get financially. It's a really big deal, especially for out-of-state students and for students that do need the money. But unfortunately, I think that you have to give and take certain things when you come into college because there's so many things that you can get involved with, and there are always going to be conflicts. So, for example, as an orientation leader, I was told that I couldn't be an RA because the conflicts, there were conflicts in trainings. So I had to pick or choose. Did I want to be an orientation leader or did I want to be an RA? Unfortunately, those are just decisions that you have to face when you come to college because you can't do absolutely everything. And also, just want to say, we just went through an election where the packet stated that they had to have Wednesdays open. So I get a little bit nervous about changing that and then possibly losing some of the senators that we did just gain because in the packet it says you must be available for those Wednesday nights. I also just sent out letters of intent, which specifically stated again the same thing.
Point of information.
This change not happened.
It's saying that
2018.
Oh shoot, you're right. But yeah, so never mind. But still, just something to think about that there's a lot that has to happen before this gets instituted. You have to think about the fact that USG traditionally is on a Wednesday, and how it will implicate the thoughts of other people with that. But I do admire it a lot because I see a lot of people that can't do both, and like Erica said, money completely does overtake this because for some people it's a big struggle to afford the experience of being a college student.
Thank you, Vice President Valverde. Do we have any other discussion on the matter?
Yeah, but you have to remember, at some point I agree with this. Any day we change it to, it's going to be complicated because the people, there's 5 days in this week, the weekdays, and any day we do, people are going to be lost in the game. It's just tradition, it's been Wednesday for so long. People that don't into USG know it's one thing. And then, I really don't want to screw our days, but if we change it to any other day, people are going to get lost. There's no way to see everybody. We have to.
Thank you, Senator Baraka. Do we have any further discussion on the matter? Sorry. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else.
I would love to see this again possibly with some like numbers, maybe like talking to people and maybe doing like some sort of survey to see if there really is like a correlation between why we're not getting certain people and if it is maybe the RA conflict or if there's something else that happens on Wednesdays, just to kind of see a little bit more of the data with it. But I do think it's a great idea.
Does anyone have any further discussion on the issue? Yes, of course.
My main goal was to bring this in discussion and just make people aware. One, of the fact that people are choosing to become RAs over participation in USG just because of financial compensation, and just that we do have some seats that are empty. And in regards to what Senator Murray said, basically, even though those seats may not have people who run, usually they're still part of the university. And if we have 20,000 undergrads here, we should have those seats filled. So at this point, it's something that we should do as USG, as a Senate body. It's something that we should be doing. I just wanted to kind of put that into question, just something to discuss. So that's what's my main goal here.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any further discussion on the issue? Seeing none, I will suspend the rest of my time to Speaker Wayne. Hello again, everybody. Before we move on, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Senator O'Connor for being brave enough to be the first person to chair Senate in Interest for next year. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank Senator Thakar for all of her hard work on this proposal. It's really amazing to me that you have so many new senators this year that have done so much work in regards to legislation. That includes Senator Javidi, includes Senator Baruka, O'Connor, Tumu, Gibbs, and hello. But thank you so much, everybody. Okay. If I remember correctly, that's the end of discussion, and we'll move into announcements now. Are there any announcements? Vice President Mallory?
All right, I just want to talk about a few things. I know that Dan went over some information about banquet, so please keep in mind that it is at 130 people cap, and we're about halfway, well not almost, but like we're about over 60 people, so really try and RSVP as soon as possible if you're thinking about coming. We also have a new thing coming up, which is Senior Week. We will be doing commendations, and Erica will be taking point on all of the senior projects, but just for seniors, keep in mind that we are going to be doing a new thing, a dinner for all the seniors. We are going to be ordering senior sashes. If your name is on the dock already, you're all set. If you haven't put your name down, it was due like Tuesday, so if you could do that, that'd be really awesome. Commendations, we're going to talk a little bit about it more in detail later on, but Erica will send an email with everything written out. And we're also going to be matching underclassmen with a senior to kind of make their week during that senior week type of thing, just to thank the seniors for all their hard work. And then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about the calls for letters of intent have been sent out last night. It was a little bit late, I'm sorry, I had a very long day yesterday. But obviously because we just found out your results on Monday, this process is going to be really, really fast. The names were actually due today to student activities, but obviously in the circumstances, I was given until next Friday. So I just want to go over some points. So the email was sent out. If you didn't get that email, please let me know. The position descriptions are there. And just so the intent to apply is due Friday, March 24th by 8 p.m. It's literally right around the corner. We've gotten a lot already, but I just want to kind of explain to you all that this is just essentially so that we know that you're running to make sure that you can even be appointed at that position. And you need to submit your name, your email, your PeopleSoft number to the vice president at usg.uconn.edu email. And I'm really, really suggesting that you send this as soon as possible. And then letters of intent and resumes are due by Saturday, March 25th by 8 p.m. We tried making it super short. It should be no more than one page. You just have to hit those 6 bullet points. We're not expecting like a novel. Lisette and I are super understanding that this is really fast and that it's happening like literally this weekend, so please don't spend too much time on it. It's not supposed to be any type of pressure. It should be fun, nice and quick, nothing too big. And then lastly, interviews are starting to happen already this Sunday, so that's why I really want everybody to start submitting their applications, because as soon as you submit it, I'm giving you the doodle to actually fill out the time. So you're not going to get that interview doodle unless you send us the information first. And the interviews are from Sunday to Wednesday. And of course, if it doesn't work with you, the times that we do have, then feel free to contact me and Lisette. We will definitely find something else. And the notification of selections are already next Friday, March 31st. So just, it is really quick. If you have any questions, I'm going to be here a little bit afterwards. If you want to talk about it one-on-one,
before you have to submit your intent to apply. Elsa and I would be more than happy to meet with you. And we're really encouraging everybody to apply. From what I've seen already in the pool of the intents to apply, it's, you know, for really new members, older members, so there's a big diversity in the amount of people that are applying. So don't be discouraged if you are a new member. Don't be discouraged if you haven't really sat in on a committee yet. We really just want to see a lot of people taking up the opportunity to apply and then see where it goes from there. And that's it.
Thank you, Vice President Valverde. President Byrd?
George kind of stole my announcement, but I just wanted to say how proud I was of everyone who participated in today's debate. It was really, really fantastic, especially for Senator O'Connor. I have never seen someone chair a committee that well on their the Senate that well on their first try. So congratulations on that. I'm very proud of you for that. And for everyone who wrote legislation, debated, just really very thoughtful debate. So let's keep it up for the next 2 Senates because you guys are awesome. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no further. Senator Byrd.
Okay. All I wanted to say was thank you to George Wayne for going to the effort to try to tidy up our Constitution and to being outstanding.
That made me feel good. Chief Staff, why don't you go?
Okay, everyone. So some of you are not in the Facebook group, whether or not you want to be. But anyway, so on the public Facebook page, I recently posted the fact that it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month for April, and the Women's Center, along with the Community Resource Team, has asked for us to publicize it. So if you could go on the public page and like share that flyer, it's like a calendar of events. There's 5 events happening. That would be awesome. So the next one will be Thursday, March 20th, so tomorrow, at 6 p.m. in Perlac. It's it's a screening and a talk back with Angie Rivera, who stars in the documentary. So it captures her story, a 24-year-old who courageously shares her parallel journey of being undocumented and surviving sexual abuse. The activist, blogger, and advice columnist will join you all to discuss the unique challenges undocumented survivors face as they navigate the complex immigration system. So please attend. A lot of our members here are in Perlac. A lot of our members are working on issues with undocumented students. So this would be super, super valuable for you to attend. And I'll keep announcing more events as they come up, including Take Back the Night. So.
All right, seeing no more announcements, Senator Rogalski, did you? Okay. I saw you saying anticipation. Then, if that is the case, if there is no objection, we will adjourn at 8:31. Thank you, everybody.